Well, good evening to our viewers. Welcome to the Evening Review Show. I'm Matthias Haufiku, your host for tonight's show. Well, over the years, the Namibians have been crying. Many have been saying that they've lost their properties due to what they term unconstitutional court judgments. There's also been a lot of advocacy around this matter where Namibians felt that the court should be able to stand up more in terms of protecting their rights to own their properties. We have in studio for that discussion tonight Mr. Hewat Beukes. He's an advisor to the Homeowners Association. Mr. Beukes, good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening and thank you for having me.
It's indeed good having you on the set tonight. Mr. Beukes, just as an intro to tonight's discussion, Homeowners Association, what is this all about? What do you do? And as far as the topic of tonight is concerned, where do you fit into this narrative of protecting homeowners?
Yeah, the Homeowners Association came into being because of the many homes, family homes that were lost due to the mismanagement of bonds by the banks, by illegal activities, and by illegal losses due to unconstitutional activity by the banks. The most serious of it was that since 1990, despite and contrary to the Constitution, the Registrar of the High Court was allowed to issue judgments, default judgments, and to declare homes executable. Yes. While the Namibian Constitution, actually this is the central issue, is that the Namibian Constitution designate a court as consisting of judges, magistrates, but not administrative staff such as a registrar. And this is what has been happening. And without success, the homeowners had been fighting for 34 years against this unconstitutionality until last week when the Supreme Court openly declared its refusal to implement the Constitution by declaring a judgment by the Registrar of the High Court unconstitutional, because that would have meant these banks would have had to repay billions to the Namibian people who had lost their homes.
Yeah. If there's such a strong feeling that these judgments by what you call the administrative staff, the registrar in this case, are unconstitutional, why is it taking so long to sort of overturn the current status quo?
You should look at the unaccountability of the appointment of judges. In our case, for instance, the court openly stated that it will not implement the Constitution. It's very careful to touch the Constitution when issuing a judgment or decide any issue. But if you look at what the Constitution says, the Namibian Constitution, it says a court shall be subject only, and the word is only, to this Constitution and the law. Yes. Now both the law is also subject to the Constitution. It must be constitutional. Yes. Now if when a whole nation has accepted a Constitution as the supreme law and the judge decides that they will not implement it, that's high treason.
Yeah. So what in your view would you say would bring a court to this conclusion, which you now you were clearly baffled as to how they arrived at this conclusion.
I'm not actually baffled about it. There are two issues. In our case, in my particular case, it is also linked to political victimization because my water and my prepaid electricity had been cut off. We are not, we've got no access to municipal services of whatsoever nature. And we get visited regularly by municipal officials, even accompanied by soldiers and by police with AK-47s in an effort to intimidate us. But that is political. But the actual situation is that there is a merger between the banks and the state. They even serve judges in their chambers, these banks. Now that is not allowed. The judges need to be independent. And further on, you can, the way that the judges behave as far as these matters are concerned, show that there is a closer relationship. There's also proof, I mean the open proof is that these judges, some of them are board chairmen of the, or they were board chairmen of the banks. They've got a close incestuous relationship with the banks.
Yeah. So you said there's a very disturbing merger between banks and the state. Of course, the state regulates banks through the Bank of Namibia. Are these some of the avenues you sort of tried to approach for recourse in this matter?
Yeah, the Financial Intelligence Center was centered at the Bank of Namibia. It's not only us, but various attempts were made to lay complaints with the banks. They simply ignore it. They outright ignore it with the Bank of Namibia, who should supervise the activities of these banks. That is the one thing, but that is now causing the problem because in all these financial scandals that Namibia is involved, the banks are central in moving the cash, but they are not part of the, in terms of the POCA and in terms of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act and the other legal instruments, they are supposed to report on where funds come from and where they are going to, but they have no accountability whatsoever to report these obviously suspicious transactions, etc. So the banks in this country are under a lot of scrutiny, and at the moment it's threatening to get this country into a grey listing, if not a black listing. And they are scrambling, but they are not doing enough. And it's like the scorpion who coaxed the fish to take him across the river. And the fish said, but you will sting me. And he says, why should I sting you? You know, I'm taking a lift, I'm pleading to you, take me across because my girlfriend is on the other side. And in the middle of the stream, he stung the fish. And the fish said, okay, now we are drowning both of it. So he says, you should know from the beginning, that is what I do. Now these banks are so set in their ways, they have, that they cannot stop. And what I need to explain politically what this means is, you know, the blacks could not own property until about 1978 in municipal areas. But in 78, the NASBO Corps, which is now the NHE, was had to facilitate the ownership of and to start the process of giving bonds to black families. And that is when the banks stepped in and they started to make their pretty penny. And the vast masses of people who had never had that sort of property rights were caught unawares. They were oblivious of the true nature of the banks. Now, the South African regime already as far as 1920, in order to protect the poor Afrikaners, brought in these Building Societies Act to shield the people from the banks. But what happened here, and the Usury Act is also in force here, but they simply disregard it. They bloat loans illegally, and so people get into greater and greater debt because of the illegal amounts that they are heaped on the housing loan, and that is how people lose their houses. Now, what we did as the Homeowners Association in 2012, we took the matter up to the National Council. Ms. Maggie Mensah was at that time, I think she was the deputy chairman, and she took up the presentations of the homeowners, and she saw what was going on, and she invited the bank managers to put their side of the story, and we put our side of the story. The banks could not answer, and they declined to answer. They were there, but they declined. So the National Council, on the basis of our presentations, prepared a bill for repealing these rules and laws that allow houses to be wantonly declared executable and to be lost to families, to try to stem that tide. And unfortunately, that bill is still at the National Assembly collecting dust, because there is a political link in these dealings by the banks.
Well, what could this link be?
It is corruption. I mean, the corruption is not a strange thing in this world, whether it is in here or whether it's in Africa, but it's very pronounced in these African countries because of the repression of the masses of people. Now it is extended. I mean, it's no longer a question of just blacks suffering. It's all the homeowners.
I mean, you also mentioned earlier on before we started that there was sort of regulations to sort of protect the homeowners, where it was prohibited for building societies and banks to sort of come together, merge. What was the thinking around that, and how was it handled?
We wrote extensively on that issue. It's the Building Society prohibits banks from merging, or building society merging with any other business entity except with a building society. They could merge with another building society, but in this case, they claim they used all sorts of subterfuges. First, they linked it to the City Savings Bank. They said it had merged, and they had formed the Swabo Bank Limited. But there is, if you go through the situation, you go through a maze of dubious dealings. Because this Swabo Bank that was purportedly formed in 2002 was actually a unit of the Southwest Africa Building Society that was registered already in 94.
Yeah.
It is the Swabo Bank. Its registration number is 94/081. And all these dark dealings took place. There are many, the load of them.
Yeah.
And through that, the First National Bank was able to seize the 3.7 billion home loan book.
Yeah.
With the entire home loan market of 60%. Swabo commanded 60% of the home loan market in this country.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Beukes, we wait for a short break and we'll be back to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
To our viewers, wait for a short break. Stay tuned.
Connection. It's in the human touch, the feeling of belonging. It inspires us and empowers us, creates clarity from complexity. It starts new conversations, unlocks the power of advice, and makes an impact on your life. At Alex Forbes, we pioneer insight to provide you with advice that connects your decisions of today to your impact tomorrow.
Well, let me welcome you back from that short break. Mr. Beukes, of course, the issue of the courts and the interpretation of this whole matter and how they've dealt with it, it seemingly doesn't sit well with you because you feel they could have handled and could handle this situation much better to, in the long run, protect homeowners. What would you say, what is the way forward in this?
Yeah, the issue of the court, the objective of the court is not so much to protect homeowners as to comply with the law, to enforce the law.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you do not enforce the law correctly and constitutionally, then it means that there is no law. And that is how people lose their homes. That is what we say. If you look at the judgment that came out last week about our home, is that the judgment says this court has over the years adopted the approach that a court should decide constitutional issues only when it is absolutely necessary. In this connection, we are inclined to reaffirm the approach of this court in Kawesa versus Minister of Home Affairs and others, that it should decide no more than what was absolutely necessary for the decision of a case. Constitutional issues in particular ought to be developed cautiously, judicially, and pragmatically if they were to withstand the test of time. This approach is still the position today, and I should also apply the matter before us. She says, I am of the considered view that the issue of the unconstitutionality of Rule 31(5)(a), that is the rule that allows the registrar to make judgments, need not be considered in light of the findings of the functus officio principle and undue delay. What she says, the Constitution becomes invalid if if you take long to exercise your right.
Yeah.
The Constitution is the supreme law. And if you are asked to make a finding on the constitutionality of the issue, you shall make it. That's why it is the supreme law.
Yeah.
It is not a question of a discretion. And the position that the Supreme Court of Namibia has always taken is and which it reaffirmed each and every time when this issue came up, was that the court quo failed to, if an act is void, if an act is void, then it is in law a nullity. It is not only bad, but incurably bad. There is no need for an order of the court to set it aside. It is automatically null and void without more ado, though it is sometimes convenient to have the court declare it so. You cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stay there. It will collapse. What this means is that once an illegal step is taken, everything that follows on that is invalid, is a nullity. You don't need to even go back to court to decide that. But sometimes, especially in cost orders and stuff like that, which are nullities, you have to go back because the person will try to enforce the illegal judgment. So you have to go back, then you must go. But the court says forever, that action is void forever. Now, if a person sells my house on a judgment that illegal person like the registrar gave in 2005, no matter what follows on top after that, everything remains invalid, illegal, and it is an illegal judgment, and they refuse to make such a decision.
Yeah.
This is what the Supreme Court says. Now the same court turns around and makes such a decision that the Constitution is a secondary issue. You can have a judge can have who got that position under oath, that she swears by the Constitution. Yeah. And that they can now come and decide the Constitution is a discretionary option for a judge. No, it is not.
Yeah. What do you make of perceptions of those who say perhaps the court is sort of this backing off because it doesn't want to open a can of worms, which could then bring more revelations to the fore?
Is the health of the banks or the health of the nation, what is more important? For whom is the Constitution? For the nation. Here we sit in an impoverished nation, and you see people on a daily basis being skinned of their hard-earned income. And the banks make trillions, not billions, trillions. Let us calculate from 1990 until now. I'm telling you, it's trillions that have been skinned off the Namibian people illegally. Now in South Africa, that very first national bank has been ordered to pay billions back to homeowners for similar issues around home loans.
Yeah.
Why can't they pay back here? Or why can't they restore the homes? We sit with an enormous backlog of homes. And then, my brother, you must understand, when a family loses her home here, they are right into the slums. It affects the entire family. It affects when a father and mother is forced to move to the slums. It affects the image that the children have of them as providers. It affects their dignity as a family. It is an enormous impact on the psyche of a nation if they start to lose houses, not for legal reasons, but for illegal reasons.
Yeah. So what is the way forward following last week's judgment as far as the Homeowners Association is concerned? What is the way forward?
For our judgment, in a case like this where they have signed the UN Charter of Human Rights, because our constitution is built on the conceptions of the UN Charter of Human Rights of 1948, and we are a member country of the human rights. This is not the end of the road, and we have no pleasure in displaying our country as a country that renounces its own constitution by its judges that are supposed to be people with integrity and with loyalty to the country and its constitution.
Yeah.
We have got no pleasure, but they force us. If you, in our specific case, we have been made outlaws in our own country. You go to my house now, we sit with a problem that we can't have running water like the families around us. We are, and we can't have electricity from the grid. And we are being terrorized in our own home. These are not things that we can accept. And there is not a chance in hell that we will go and seek asylum in another country. This is our country. Yeah. And there's no way that they'll remove us from this country.
Well, Mr. Beukes, thank you very much for your time this evening. And we wish you well in your advocacy for fellow homeowners and the work that you do.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bro.
Thank you. For our viewers, that's it from the Evening Review team. Thank you very much for staying tuned. So again tomorrow, same time, same place.